Hey everyone, it's Lachlan and here's my long-awaited view of the Sony NWZ-ZX1 35th anniversary 128GB flagship premium Walkman music player. So this video is going to be a little different from my normal videos just because there's so much stuff that I have to show you on the player itself that I'm not going to do it straight into the camera. It's just going to be a voiceover this time around. And I'm going to have to split this video into two parts because there's so much to talk about. So this part one, I'm just going to talk about the physical aspects of the player and the music software, and specifically how it compares against my iPhone 5S in terms of ease of use and just physical build, because that's my day-to-day use as a music player. And in the second video, which you can skip straight to if you want to just hear what I have to say about the audio quality, is just going to be a detailed look at the audio quality of the ZX1. So let's start with the first part of this video. And I should specify that I got this NWZ-ZX1 for $525 because I had a 25% discount coupon given to me after I was invited to the Sony high-res audio event. And since Australia already gets the cheapest price in the world for the ZX1, I think I got a pretty good deal for a 128 gig music player just on that basis alone. But just please be aware that I did receive a discount on this player. But anyway, let's start with the physical build. Much has been said about the ZX1's physical build, and it is absolutely really premium, really solid, beautiful feeling player. Just the machined aluminium, everything like that. I especially like the textured back, just because along with the amplifier hump, you get more of a grip on the player compared to something like the iPhone where you have to use a case to really get any sort of substantial grip. So in terms of fit and finish, the ZX1 is definitely on par as a premium product, on par with the iPhone, though it's obviously a thicker player because there's this hump on the back which houses the amplifier components. The other really nice standout feature about the ZX1 is it has hardware music buttons. So we have rewind, play, and fast forward. Then we have hardware physical volume buttons and the power button. And these are just wonderful. They make it everything much easier to use. You don't have to take the player out of your pocket to pause and play. And I just like using these more than a clicky volume remote thing. Those always kind of feel flimsy. These buttons are very solid, so that's really nice. One kind of annoying caveat is that Sony provides a case for you to use with your ZX1, but the case doesn't actually allow you to use the physical hardware button. So if you put the player in the case, which is good if you want to just protect the screen, that's a really good thing. Once you put the player in the case, you can't use the hardware buttons. So, there's a bunch of third-party cases you can buy for this now, but I think it's just a bit of an oversight because otherwise this would just be the only case that you would need for this player. So, I don't know, maybe Sony actually wants you to buy third-party cases or something. I have no idea. My second criticism of the ZX1, just in terms of the way it works, is it uses the proprietary WM port cable. It doesn't use micro USB or anything to connect to the computer or to the charger, which means that you basically have to carry around, if you want to charge the player anywhere else but home, you have to carry around the special proprietary cable. Now, this would make sense if there was a vast array of accessories that use the WM port, but there really isn't. And this is compared to the Lightning port, which is it's a proprietary connector as well, but obviously there are more accessories that support the iPhone, and I'm much more likely to carry around a Lightning cable just because I'm going to use the iPhone for tethering. So what I do is I carry around a micro USB cable with the Lightning adapter on it, and then I've got a cable that is going to suit me no matter what I need to do with it. So that's really quite irritating. I don't know why they went with the proprietary port when they could have just stuck with micro USB. The last thing that I just wanted to comment on is that the headphone jack on the ZX1, sorry, it's moving off. The headphone jack on the ZX1 actually feels, and I don't know if it's just my unit or what, but it actually feels a little loose. It doesn't take much kind of pressure to actually remove the headphone from the jack. There's a lot more kind of mechanical pressure required to kind of take it out of the iPhone thing. And, you know, I kind of personally prefer that. It just feels a little more solid. Again, I don't know if that's specifically because of my unit, but I just, you know, that's just a little thing that bugs me. So let's move on to the hardware side of things, and let's start by talking about the screen. And before we do that, I'm just going to put these coasters underneath here, and I'll tell you why I'm going to do that in a second, but let's just unlock these phones first. So, unlock these music devices. So, as you can see here immediately, the screen on the ZX1 is nice enough. It comes up with some vibrant colors, but it's actually a little dim. You can see this is both of these players are set on maximum brightness, and you can see the ZX1 is a lot more dim. The other issue with the ZX1 in terms of screen brightness is that there is no automatic light sensor on the ZX1, so you have to kind of toggle between the brightness settings, and you can barely see this on the screen at the moment, but I'm toggling through the 3 brightness settings, and it basically turns up as a black screen. It's not so bad in person, but that's definitely a weakness of this screen. That's not such a huge thing. The other thing that I wanted to show you is why I put the coasters here in the first place. As soon as I take the coasters away, you can see in terms of reflection, the ZX1 has a very reflective screen compared to the iPhone 5S. And the main reason for that appears to be that the ZX1 actually does not use a bonded glass display. And what that means is a bonded glass display is what you find on all the fancy kind of smartphones nowadays. The LCD assembly is actually bonded to the glass as one unit. So there's less of an air gap between the LCD and the glass, and as a result, that stops the light from bouncing around or something like that. I'm not sure, but basically it just translates to a higher contrast kind of display that has less reflection. The ZX1, you can actually tell that there's an air gap just looking at the sides of the screen. So, you know, it's not so great in direct sunlight, but again, that's not such a huge deal. In terms of other hardware aspects, the battery life is pretty decent on the ZX1. I use it just as a dedicated music player, so I've turned it on airplane mode. It just kind of only plays music, that kind of thing. So, you know, I get about 20 hours of playback as quoted from the ZX1 with all the sound enhancements disabled. Next, in terms of just kind of Android as a music player, I actually quite like it as a dedicated music player just because I can customize the home screen, and I'll put those coasters back on so you can see what I'm talking about. But I like the fact that I can customize the home screen and just make this really simple, just a really simple kind of music player interface. So, you know, that's a nice thing about it. In terms of the way you handle music on the ZX1, I have to say, you know, this is a matter of personal preference. The ZX1 just uses a drag and drop interface. You connect it to the computer with the WM port cable as long as you're carrying around with you, and you will be able to move music around. It will play many formats of lossless and lossy audio. I actually have set up my iPhone quite in a complex way so that I synchronize to playlists. So what happens is that when I add new music, it automatically gets added to a playlist which automatically synchronizes to the phone. And then if I want to keep the music on the phone, for instance, I give it a rating. So I give it a star rating, and then I've set the phone to, after 3 months, delete everything off except the music that has 4 or 5 star ratings. So for me, that's a really nice, elegant way of doing things. I really like it, but most people who have iPhones that I've talked to don't even bother doing that kind of thing. So for them, I think doing drag and drop music kind of manual management is maybe a better idea. So it's kind of your personal preference. I haven't been able to find a way of doing that kind of synchronization on a Macintosh computer with a ZX1 just because I can't find a good synchronization software. I've tried using Double Twist for Mac, but that transcodes lossless to AAC, which seems kind of pointless when I have a 128 gig music player. In terms of the actual music player itself, this is the default music app from Sony that I'm using. It's a nice enough app. I do quite like some of the features. So, for instance, when you play a song, you can swipe right to get information about the track, and then you can kind of, let me do that again. When you're playing a song, you can swipe left, and then you can bring up the album, and I quite like that. That's nice enough. And we have the normal kind of organization of albums. There's a couple of weird little features, like there's the Sense Me feature, which will organize songs based on an analysis of the kind of musical content of the song. I've tried this on earlier Walkmans. I haven't tried it on the ZX1. So it is a nice little feature. So if you want an album that's just a playlist that's just really good for like workouts or something like that, it will generally do a pretty good job of identifying the kind of rhythmic content of all the music. So that's a nice little thing. Where I don't like this music player in a lot of ways is because it's really let down by the CPU in the ZX1. It doesn't have high enough performance to actually compare to a modern day smartphone. So the reason why I say that is, for instance, when you're scrolling through a long list of songs on the ZX1, if you scroll through very quickly, you can see all the album art disappears and then it has to load in. When you just scroll too fast, everything disappears and then you have to wait for it to kind of load in. When you compare that to an iPhone, you can scroll this as fast as you like and there is absolutely no issue. You can always navigate visually where you are in your list of music. The other issue I have with the interface is that on the iPhone, there's an alphabetical index on the side that lets you scroll through instantly between all your library based on the letters of the alphabet. On the ZX1, that's not present all the time. In order to bring that up, you have to scroll it slightly and then you can drag this bar and it will go A, B, C, D, and you can see that here. But the silly thing about this is that once you start scrolling like this, all the albums disappear because it's too laggy to actually load up all the music. So you had to wait for it to load. That's not a huge thing, but again, this is a $500 music player and it's meant to be a flagship that compares against, it's meant to be superior as a user experience for music compared to a kind of smartphone. And so it's a little bit disappointing that it doesn't have that same kind of ease of use. Now, I don't really know how it compares to other Android music players. Again, I really only use my iPhone, but that is something to consider. Just overall, as a music player, I think the ZX1 is beautifully built, but there are just a lot of little things that prevent it from truly being on par with like a high-end smartphone in terms of ease of use, in terms of the way it's built. It is a thicker player, etc., etc. But you're probably screaming at me at this point. Well, this is all kind of pointless because I want to know, does it sound better than the iPhone? That's the most important thing. I can put up with any manner of little bugbears as far as functionality goes. So at this point, we'll just move over to part 2 of this video where I'll talk about the sound quality and how I'm testing it against the iPhone. But just as an overall summary, just in terms of being a purely 128 gig music player, I think the price I paid for it was reasonable compared to, say, a 64 gig iPod Touch, which costs about $439 in Australia. Though obviously, if you can find a player that supports expandable memory and then you can put your own SIM card in, your own SD card and get a lot more storage, the value equation of the ZX1 starts deteriorating rapidly. But anyway, let's move on to part 2.